You ever stop to think about why Batman never screams when surrounded by enemies? Why doesn't he despair when everything seems lost? Why, even amidst the absolute chaos of Gotham, does he maintain that disturbing calm that makes his adversaries tremble? The answer lies not just in his combat skills or his billion-dollar fortune. The true power of the Dark Knight is in something much deeper and more ancestral: absolute control over his own emotions through Stoicism. And today you will discover how to apply the same philosophical principles that make Batman an unstoppable force, so you never lose your head in the face of real-life challenges. What I'm going to reveal to you is not abstract theory from dusty books. These are practical mental control tools that transform ordinary people into masters of their own lives, capable of facing any storm without being shaken. Stoicism is not just an ancient philosophy created by Greeks and Romans thousands of years ago. It is a mental operating system that, when understood and applied correctly, gives you a psychological edge over any situation. And no one embodies these principles better than Bruce Wayne. While most superheroes rely on superpowers, genetic mutations, or cosmic accidents, Batman built his empire on something we can all develop: unwavering mental discipline. He wasn't born with this ability. He forged it through years of intense training, not just physical, but primarily emotional and psychological. When his parents were murdered before his eyes in that alley in Gotham, young Bruce could have taken two paths: let the trauma destroy him or turn the pain into purpose. He chose the second path, and that choice changed everything. The control that Batman exerts over himself is not emotional repression, as many mistakenly interpret. It is something much more sophisticated and powerful. It is about recognizing your emotions, understanding their origin, but not allowing them to control your actions. Stoic philosophers called this apatheia, which does not mean absence of feelings, but rather imperturbability in the face of destructive passions. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and devoted Stoic, wrote in his meditations that we have absolute power over our mind, not over external events. This distinction is fundamental and is at the heart of how Batman operates. He cannot control crime in Gotham. He cannot prevent villains from emerging. He cannot stop bad people from making terrible choices. But he has total control over how he responds to all of this. And it is precisely in that control that his true superpower lies. Think about how the Joker constantly tries to break Batman's composure. Every diabolical plan, every psychological trap, every attempt to force him to cross the moral line he has set for himself. The Joker understands that if he can make Batman lose emotional control, he wins. Because a person who acts driven by anger, fear, or despair makes poor decisions, commits fatal mistakes, becomes predictable. But Batman never bites the bait. He remains in what the Stoics called the unshakable center, that inner point where no external storm can reach. This is not coldness or lack of humanity. It is supreme mastery. When you master your emotional reactions, you master your life. Simple as that. The problem is that most people live on emotional autopilot, reacting impulsively to every provocation, every setback, every unexpected challenge. Now, how does this translate to your everyday life? How can you apply Batman's stoicism to never lose your head when everything around you seems to be crumbling? First, you need to understand the fundamental principle that governs all Stoic thought: the dichotomy of control. There are things that are under your control and things that are not. Your thoughts, your choices, your reactions, your attitudes, all of these you control completely. But the opinions of others about you, other people's behavior, external events, final outcomes, all of this is outside your direct control. Batman understands this perfectly. He does not waste mental energy trying to control the uncontrollable. He focuses all his attention and resources on what he can effectively influence: his training, his preparation, his strategy, his execution. When someone unjustly criticizes you at work, you do not control the criticism itself, but you control how you interpret that situation and how you respond to it. You can let anger take over, make a scene, burn bridges, and harm your career. Or you can stay calm, assess if there is any truth in the criticism that can help you improve, and respond with serenity and professionalism. Batman faces constant criticism. Some see him as a dangerous vigilante, others as a symbol of hope. He does not waste time trying to convince anyone. He simply continues executing his mission with excellence, knowing that his actions speak louder than words. This kind of emotional control does not arise overnight. It is a muscle that needs to be exercised daily, a discipline built through small, consistent victories over your most primitive impulses. Stoicism teaches something that Batman embodies completely: negative visualization, or premeditatio malorum. This means mentally anticipating the worst possible scenarios to be prepared if they materialize. It is not pessimism, it is strategy. Batman always has a contingency plan. He has imagined 1,000 different ways each mission could go wrong and prepared responses for all of them. Therefore, when something unexpected happens, he does not panic. His mind has already visited that territory before. He has already emotionally processed that possibility. So, when it materializes, he simply executes the alternative plan without hesitation. Compare this to the average person who lives in denial, avoiding thinking about bad possibilities, and then collapses completely when something goes wrong. Control begins with mental preparation. Another Stoic principle that Batman masters is amor fati, which means love of fate. It is not about passive conformity or defeatist resignation. It is the active acceptance of everything that happens as a necessary part of your journey. When Batman loses a battle, when an innocent dies despite his efforts, when a villain escapes, he does not allow himself to be consumed by paralyzing guilt or useless regret. He acknowledges the pain, honors the feeling, but quickly returns to focus. What can I learn from this? How can I use this experience to be more effective in the future? This ability to transform failure into fuel for growth is what separates those who win from those who give up. Stoicism does not promise that life will be easy. It promises that you will be strong enough for any challenge if you maintain control over your mind. There is a scene in the comics where Batman is being tortured by Bane, the villain who managed to break his back and destroy his body. Even in extreme physical agony, Batman keeps his mind functioning strategically, analyzing patterns, looking for weaknesses in the security system, planning his eventual escape and return. This perfectly illustrates the Stoic concept that you are not your circumstances. Your external conditions may be horrible, your body may be broken, but your mind remains sovereign if you choose so. Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher who was a slave before gaining his freedom, taught that no one can hurt you without your consent. People can assault your body, destroy your possessions, harm your reputation, but your inner mind remains inviolable unless you allow the invasion. Batman has internalized this truth absolutely, and that is what makes him psychologically unbreakable. When you lose your head, when you allow intense emotions to hijack your prefrontal cortex and take control, you surrender your personal power to external forces. You become a puppet of circumstances, reacting automatically like a frightened animal instead of responding consciously like a rational human being. Stoicism offers practical tools to interrupt this emotional hijacking before it compromises your decisions. One powerful technique is objective vision, which consists of describing the stressful situation in completely neutral and factual terms, removing all emotional charge from the narrative. Instead of thinking my boss humiliated me in front of everyone and ruined my day, you rephrase, my supervisor made critical comments about my work in the presence of colleagues. The second version is factual. The first is emotional interpretation. Batman constantly practices this emotional disidentification, seeing situations as they really are, not as his fears or ego want to paint them. Another crucial aspect of Stoic control that Batman exemplifies is temperance, the virtue of balance and moderation. Even being a billionaire, Bruce Wayne does not lose himself in hedonistic excesses. Every resource, every tool, every moment is directed toward his greater purpose. He does not drink to forget his pains, nor does he seek empty pleasures to fill the void left by family tragedy. He channels absolutely everything into his mission. This does not mean living a life without joy or pleasure. It means not being a slave to those things. The Stoics distinguished between natural and necessary pleasures versus empty and destructive pleasures. They enjoyed the good things in life without becoming dependent on them. If you can only be happy when things are perfect, you will live unhappy most of the time, because life is rarely perfect. But if you develop inner contentment independent of external circumstances, you carry peace wherever you go. The control we are discussing is not rigidity, it is flexibility within firm principles. Batman constantly adapts his tactics, but his core values never change. He does not kill, does not use firearms, protects the innocent above all. These are his non-negotiable lines. But how he achieves those goals varies tremendously depending on the situation. This combination of moral firmness with tactical flexibility is essentially Stoic. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should be like the rock that withstands the waves, remaining steadfast while the water around it eventually calms. You cannot control the waves of life, the inevitable shocks, the unpredictable turbulence. But you can choose to be the rock, unshakable at your core, maintaining your integrity no matter how violent the storm. Many people confuse Stoicism with emotional suppression or cold indifference. This is a fundamental misunderstanding. Batman feels deeply. He simply does not allow his feelings to dictate his actions impulsively. When he loses an ally, he feels the pain. When he fails to save someone, guilt torments him. But he does not drown in those emotions. He acknowledges them, processes them, learns from them, and moves on. This is the difference between feeling emotions and being controlled by them. Feeling is human and healthy. Being controlled is destructive and limiting. The Stoics greatly valued positive emotions such as love, joy, and gratitude, but they developed immunity to destructive passions like unchecked anger, paralyzing fear, and corrosive envy. The goal is not to become a machine without feelings, but rather a human being who maintains equanimity even when feelings are intense. There is a Stoic concept called prososh, which means attention or constant vigilance. It is the practice of continuously monitoring your thoughts, judgments, and reactions to ensure they remain aligned with reason and virtue. Batman practices this impeccably. He is always aware of his mental state, checking whether he is operating from clear logic or if some emotion is clouding his judgment. When he realizes that anger is starting to influence his decisions, he steps back, recalibrates, and returns to center. This metacognitive self-awareness is a skill that anyone can develop through deliberate practice. Start simply by observing your thoughts throughout the day. When you feel a strong emotion rising, mentally pause and ask, is this reaction serving me? Is it bringing me closer to who I want to be or pushing me away? This simple habit of conscious observation already initiates the process of regaining control over your mental life. Batman's physical preparation also reflects Stoic principles. He trains his body not for vanity, but for functionality and discipline. The Stoics believed that taking care of the body was a duty, not because the body was the most important aspect of existence, but because a healthy body supports a clear mind. They practiced regular exercise, moderate diet, and adequate sleep, not as ends in themselves, but as means to maintain the instrument through which we act in the world. When you are physically exhausted, emotionally overwhelmed, and mentally foggy from neglecting basic needs, losing control becomes almost inevitable. Batman understands that mental control starts with solid foundations: a rested body, a mind fed with useful knowledge, a spirit nourished by meaningful purpose. One of the most powerful Stoic exercises that Batman implicitly practices is the visualization of the wise. The Stoics recommended imagining how a perfectly wise person would respond to the situation you are facing. When Bruce Wayne is unsure about a decision, he might ask himself, how would my father act? How would Alfred advise me? What would my mentors do in this situation? You can do the same. When you are about to lose your temper, pause and ask, how would the best version of myself respond right now? What advice would I give to a friend facing this? This psychological distancing instantly reduces emotional intensity and restores rational clarity. It is a simple yet incredibly effective technique for regaining control when you feel like you are losing it. Batman also exemplifies something the Stoics called memento mori, remembering death, not as a morbid practice, but as a tool for perspective. When you truly internalize that your life is finite, that each day is precious and irretrievable, many of the things that normally upset you reveal their insignificance. Did someone cut you off in traffic? Irrelevant in the grand scheme of a well-lived life. Did your social media post not get likes? Completely trivial when you consider that you are wasting precious moments of existence on empty concerns. Batman carries the awareness of mortality constantly. He has seen death take his parents, has faced his own death multiple times, knows that any night patrolling Gotham could be his last. This awareness does not make him pessimistic. It makes him focused. He does not waste energy on trivialities because he knows that time is the most valuable resource he has. Applying this means making conscious choices about where to invest your limited attention. When someone tries to provoke him before reacting automatically, he asks, "Will this matter in 5 years? In a year? Tomorrow?" If the answer is no, why allow it to steal your peace now? Total control over your mind means choosing your battles with extreme wisdom. You cannot win every fight, so the wise person only chooses those that truly matter and lets the others go without emotional engagement. Batman does not chase every street criminal in Gotham. He prioritizes the threats that cause the most harm. Similarly, you do not need to respond to every provocation, correct every wrong opinion, defend yourself against every criticism. Some things simply deserve to be ignored while you focus on what truly matters. Another fundamental principle is the Stoic concept of oikaiosis, the gradual expansion of moral concern. We start concerned only with ourselves, then with close family, then community, eventually with all humanity. Batman operates at the top of this moral hierarchy. He risks everything for Gotham, for the innocent, for a better world, even knowing that he may never see the full fruits of his labor. This orientation towards something greater than oneself is a powerful source of emotional control because it puts personal problems in proper perspective. When you are committed to a greater mission, small personal offenses lose their power to destabilize you. You do not have time for drama because important work is being done. Find your mission, your purpose that transcends ego, and watch how many things that used to disturb you simply cease to matter. Daily discipline is where Stoicism becomes practical and transformative. Stoic philosophers practiced morning reflection, where they mentally prepared for the challenges of the day, and evening reflection, where they reviewed their actions and learned from mistakes. Batman certainly does this. Before each mission, he visualizes possible scenarios, mentally prepares for difficulties. Then, he analyzes what worked and what failed, constantly refining his approach. You can implement a simplified version of this. In the morning, take 5 minutes to visualize your day and commit to your principles. Today, I will remain calm even if provoked. I will respond with wisdom, not with anger. I will focus on what I can control. In the evening, review. Did I keep my commitments? Where did I lose control? What can I do better tomorrow? This simple practice builds self-knowledge and self-mastery impressively over time. Forgiveness is an aspect of Stoicism often overlooked, but that Batman illustrates complexly. He does not forgive in the sense of forgetting or allowing villains to continue hurting people, but he does not carry the poisonous hatred that would destroy him from within. He understands that bad people make bad choices, often out of ignorance or mental illness, and while their actions deserve consequences, hating them would only poison his own soul. Marcus Aurelius wrote that holding a grudge is like drinking poison, hoping the other person dies. When you maintain emotional control, you do not allow the bad actions of others to occupy permanent mental space. You deal with the situation, implement appropriate consequences if possible, and then release the toxic emotional burden. This is not weakness, it is supreme strength. It requires much more control to forgive or let go than to retaliate with anger. The last Stoic lesson that Batman embodies is courage. Not the absence of fear, but the right action despite fear. He feels fear when facing lethal threats, but he never allows fear to paralyze his actions or dictate his decisions. The Stoics saw courage as one of the four essential cardinal virtues, along with wisdom, justice, and temperance. Courage means doing what is right even when it is difficult, scary, or costly. It means holding to your principles under pressure. It means not losing your head even when fear screams at you to panic. Developing this stoic courage begins with small daily acts. Speak the truth when lying. It would be easier. Defend someone who is being wronged, even if it costs you socially. Maintain the difficult commitment you made to yourself. Each small victory over fear and convenience builds moral muscle that eventually allows you to face greater challenges without losing your composure. The control that Batman exerts is not robotic perfection. He makes mistakes, has moments of doubt, struggles with internal demons, but he always returns to center through conscious discipline. Stoicism does not promise that you will never stumble. It promises that you will learn to get up quickly and keep moving forward. The difference between those who master their lives and those who are dominated by them is not in never falling, but in how long it takes to regain control after a fall. Practice self-compassion when you fail, but do not use it as an excuse to abandon the effort. Batman forgives himself for past mistakes, but never stops demanding future excellence from himself. This balance between acceptance of what was and commitment to what will be is the essence of stoic growth. Implementing these principles in your life does not require you to become a nighttime vigilante fighting crime. It only requires that you start observing your automatic reactions and make conscious choices about how to respond to the world. When you feel anger rising, pause for 3 seconds before speaking or acting. When facing disappointment, ask, what can I learn here, instead of why did this happen to me? When someone criticizes you, seek the potential truth in the criticism instead of automatically defending your ego. These micro choices, repeated thousands of times, completely transform who you are and how you experience life. Control is everything because when you control your mind, you control your experience of reality. And when you control your experience, you truly control your life, no matter what happens externally. Batman understands this completely. Now you understand it too. The question that remains is, will you apply this knowledge or just admire it passively? Because knowledge without application is entertainment, not transformation. Start today, start small, but start. The control you seek is waiting on the other side of the decision to practice it consistently.